Hello. Sorry, I need to finish swallowing my donut. I, I, it's funny because some of these intros, the picture of this intro is long, so I'm always like, all right, I could run, take a lap, use a bathroom. You know, this one not as long,
Mm.
19 seconds, I think, so or 16 seconds. So not enough time to scarf down half
Take
a
a whole
donut,
bite.
but I
Sure.
did. No, it was half a donut. But we're back. I'm back at least. Let me take a swig of coffee. You introduced the show today, Kels. What's up?
Okay. Hey everyone, what's going on? Welcome here to Marvel-ous Movie Mondays. I'm one of your co-hosts, Kelsey. On my left here is my other co-host, Dylan. Dill, how's it going? How are you doing today?
It's going well. I like that. It was a good intro, and it's
I
funny because
tried to do it word for word how you do it every week.
yeah, well, because Kelsey and Dill is the title, and I always start it, so I'm like, it's always weird that I'm like with Kelsey and Dill, and I'm Dill. It doesn't make sense, but when it's Kelsey
Kelsey.
and Dill, and I'm Kelsey, that starts it off well. But yeah, so she's Kelsey, I'm Dill. This is Marvel-ous Movie Mondays, where we talk about Marvel. It's a podcast, it's a video as well. And today we were talking about Secret Invasion episodes 1 and 2. We weren't talking about Secret Invasion last week because we
I
had
was
a
too busy
MCU
losing.
trivia. Well, hey, you were winning, just not winning as much as the other person who was winning. But
Wow, that's one way to look at
hey,
it, Dill.
it's
Thank you.
encouraging, right? I'm going to be a great coach. If I ever coach a children's baseball team, which I don't think will ever happen. We'll see, maybe.
Or you
Or
could be a
softball.
manager for a movie trivia
There you go.
contest.
Yes. So Kels, how are you feeling 1 week removed from your valiant effort in the Marvel trivia ring? Do you feel a sense of relief? Are you anxious to get back in there? Are you excited that you get to compete with all the next tiered players?
You know, Dill, there is a level of relief to this, to losing this title, because I no longer like rewatch. I do a bit of rewatching, just because I do love these movies so much, but I don't rewatch them with like a magnifying glass and like my hand ready to jot down notes on a notebook. With an intensity. It's just not as intense anymore. It's I don't feel a pressure to know,
Mhm.
what, you know, Peter Parker's t-shirt says at 12 minutes and 57 seconds.
Oh my god, imagine
There's
if we
none
started
of
asking questions like that. Like at 16 seconds and 16 minutes and 2 seconds, what word is spoken? And you're like,
Yeah,
um,
right.
yeah,
So
in
there
free
there is
form.
a sense of relief. I'm happy for Stacy. I genuinely am. And I was challenged. I was planning on possibly retiring, but I was challenged right after losing, and I can't back down from a challenge. So
That's
it
right.
looks like I'm going to be throwing my name in the ring every now and again, but
Yeah,
not
you'll be
to the
back, but
level that I
we'll give
once
you some
was.
time. We'll give you some time. We'll give you a few
Thank
months
you.
before you even have to think about another match. But we're here to talk about Secret Invasion because, as I said, we skipped
Yes.
the first week, but we are going to be talking about both the first 2 episodes. But they kind of work to be talked about together. I mean, when critics got Secret Invasion screeners about a month ago, they got the first 2 episodes. So, like, every review you got a month ago was about the first 2 episodes. So, we're a little late to the game in terms of reviewing it, but hey, it doesn't hurt to talk about it whenever because seemingly all these shows and TVs and movies are going to be relevant at the end of the game anyway. That was an end game thing, but I guess there's an even bigger thing at the end, Secret Wars. So I guess this is all building the Secret Wars, and this is a Secret Invasion. So Kelsey, tell us, lead us into this, ease us in to maybe just a general overall synopsis, I guess, of what Secret Invasion is,
Sure.
maybe, and then we can dive into each episode or just both episodes at once, however you want to prepare it or present it. And then you can also segue into your own kind of general thoughts if you want.
Sure. So we're starting with episode 1. I feel like my summary for episode 1 is pretty much a blanket statement for the entire show. So
Right.
I'll just read that to you now. Episode
Sure.
1 was titled Resurrection. Um, and here we go. 30 years after Skrulls came to Earth, Talos and Nick try to stop a resistance group from trying to overtake the Earth.
There you go. It's so funny because you said Nick, and yeah, his name's Nick, but I feel like he's always referred to as Nick Fury, and it's such a cool
Or
I'm Nick,
Fury.
Nick Fury. But then when you just call him
Yeah.
Nick, it's like he's very less he's a little sweeter. It's almost like
Yeah.
I want to get a beer with Nick Fury. Ooh, like he's
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
talking about a name. Now you said Nick, and I just pictured Nick from New Girl. Dude going around with scrolls.
Imagine
He
Nick
would never.
Miller from New Girl being the director of S.H.I.E.L.D. He'd be like, "I don't know."
It would be his Spider-Man, basically.
Yeah.
Um,
Oh, yeah, Peter B.
cool.
Parker.
What were your blanket thoughts, I guess, on this first episode? But so far overall, like Secret Invasion, how you feeling about it?
I mean, I like it. I'm enjoying, having a good time. There's this, there's this suspense to this show because you never know who's gonna be a scroll. And I feel like that's the whole I already have some predictions for people who might be scrolls, who might not be who they say they are.
Oh,
Um
okay.
and you know, we got a really big death at the end of episode 1, jumping the gun here, which I'm not convinced is real, but I might just be in a state of denial. And I'm enjoying the performances. I'm enjoying the addition of Emilia Clarke, of Olivia Colman. Um, and yeah, I'm looking forward to the next episode. I'm looking forward to Wednesday, and I feel like that's how it should be when we watch these shows. And so that's pretty much all I can ask for. What about you,
Cool.
Jill?
Um,
Oh no.
okay, it's 2 episodes, so I'm not gonna like judge a show on 2 episodes yet. I mean, there's gonna be only 6 for this one, I think.
Yeah.
So we're a third of the way through. I don't like it. I think I don't know. I think the actual like mystery of who is and who isn't is like, yeah, that's fun, I guess. But for some reason, the energy just feels off. It just feels like
Hmm.
it almost feels like they're trying so much to scale it back and bring it back to phase one. And that's what I was excited about. I was like, we're going to get something more grounded. It's going to be like Winter Soldier-esque. But I think what the difference is with a 2-hour movie and you're telling this whole long story, it's going to be
Mhm.
edited in a certain way to where the events move a little faster because it's a movie. It's 2 hours rather than 6 hours because this is essentially going to be a 6-hour show. Each episode is almost an hour. So
Mhm.
6 hours, you have time to elongate it. But I don't necessarily know if the show needs to be elongated to where there's a lot of moments where it's just like, people talking, and that's fine. Loki had a lot of that too, just Loki and Sylvie having conversations and stuff. But for me,
Mhm.
a lot of it just seems like filling time rather than actually getting somewhere with the plot. The energy just feels a little lackluster. And then I just kind of, the overall premise just kind of bugs me in and of itself because think about it. Captain Marvel, the whole thing was like these scrolls are evil. They're villainous. We should be scared of them. Oh wait, they're just people. They just want to find a home.
Mhm.
They're harmless. They're not the real enemy here.
Mhm.
And I get the whole thing is like Nick Fury promised them a new home, new planet, and hasn't gotten it to them yet, and they're sick of waiting. I get that,
Mhm.
but there's also I think a bit of retraction there where we're now just kind of going back to now scrolls are enemies again, and we have some allies, but now it's like the general perception is, oh, you can't trust the scrolls. And I
Sure.
think I'm like, what if we just, let's say it's a different studio, it's not Marvel, you pitch a premise where these foreigners are in your area, in your world, they come and live in your planet, in your let's say your country, let's say they immigrate to your country, and the whole premise is, oh, we can't let these immigrants take over, we have to send them away, we are now threatened by them because they look different than us, they act different than us, they can't coexist with us. And I think
Mhm.
that's a little bit of a problem because if you take away the Marvelness of it all, essentially it feels a little anti-immigration. It feels a little, I don't know, I might be reading into it too much, but I was just
Well,
thinking, I was like, the whole thing is like, I thought the whole thing was that we can like still coexist with them and we will find them their own home and stuff, but
mhm.
you know, it just feels like, oh, we got to send them back where they belong type thing. And I know like the show presents actual villains who are doing villainous things. That's different. But when the overall show, the premise is built on, oh, we can't trust this race. We're worried that this race is going to take over. It sounds a little like some of the things some people in America say about certain types of people of, oh, we can't let them take over, we can't let them stand in line to vote, so we're going to make it harder for them to vote type thing,
Right.
like it just has, it's teetering on the edge of some icky stuff that I don't think necessarily needs to be a thing. But again, I trust that Marvel has an overall plan. There's probably more to it, but in the first 2 episodes, I'm like, I don't know. Especially because I love Captain Marvel so much, and I love how they kind of defeat the stigma of kind of treating the book by its cover, and the whole like scrolls. You should have given them a shot. They're not harmful, or at least not all of them. And I think this kind of backtracks on that, and that's my overall issue. Though I'm
Sure.
waiting to see where they resolve it. Sorry, I talked a while on that, but I just think that's right now where I'm like still like, what am I supposed to take away from this story? Like I
Well,
don't know what the lesson is.
Well, Dill, I was totally getting everything that you were just talking about, but I didn't see it in like a negative way. I thought that it was a really, creative way to kind of for Marvel to kind of hold up a mirror to our society right now and to have us kind of like face this in like a different way. And, it should make you feel kind of icky and gross about, that people are feel this way in real life about real people
Mm,
in our country right now.
right.
And so I think that it's just like another way that like kind of reality just is bleeding its way into our
Yeah.
um mythical, whimsical stories
Yeah, I
like
think
this one.
the only issue with that though is that we're supposed to be rooting for the guys who want to get rid of them. You know what I mean? Like we're supposed to be rooting for Nick Fury, and we should root for Nick Fury because we like Nick Fury.
Right,
But it's like, if anything, I'm probably more drawn to Amelia Clark's story because she's the one who's like kind of caught in the middle of this. I
right.
think she's probably got the most like interesting character arc probably because the villains in this show are doing villainous things. So it's like you can't really root for them, but
Sure.
essentially you kind of understand where they're coming from and the fact that
Yeah,
like no, like it's kind of like a Black Panther thing. But I
yeah.
still think Black Panther did a good enough job about making Black Panther the hero, whereas I'm just struggling to see why I should want Nick Fury to succeed in getting rid of these scrolls. But I also don't want the scrolls to succeed because they're also terrorist scrolls. But like, I
Right.
don't know. Like it's weird. It's like who am I supposed to root for? And if I'm rooting for Nick Fury, then I'm rooting for the people who are trying to send immigrants back to their countries. And that to me is a little icky. And that's why I'm hoping there's like a turn. And
Mhm.
but then if this whole show ends with, oh, humans and scrolls coexisting again, isn't that just where Captain Marvel ended? And that's where I'm kind of like, I don't know. Like I'm like, why even have this then?
Sure.
So
Well,
I would have honestly liked it for it to just be like its own enemy. Like, don't even make it scrolls, make it this other being that is like hiding as these people, and like I don't know. I don't know. I'm still
yeah.
waiting. I'm still waiting. I think it's
I
two
get what you're
episodes, but those
saying.
are my initial concerns.
Sure. I kinda like that it's kinda messy and complicated. I like how it's almost like as if we are supposed to obviously root for, Nick Fury and Talos, but then at the end of the day, like, you just really feel for these people that just want a home. Like, their catchphrase when they go to their compound is just, "I want a home in my own skin." And I think
Right.
that that statement alone can apply to so many different people in America right now. Like, they just wanna be considered human beings in their own skin and who they truly are. And I think that there's tons of you can look at it in ways that are tons of like metaphorical and um, similar to life right now. And I didn't necessarily see that as a bad thing, but I totally get where you're coming from where
Yeah.
it's like, well, you don't want them to be exiled to a different planet now and like, oh, now this is where you belong. You can't be here anymore. So
Hmm.
we'll see where the show takes us. But
Yeah.
let's get jump right into episode one, shall we?
Of course.
Break down the episode a little bit like we did back in the old days. I can't remember the last time we did this. Okay.
Last show was She-Hulk. Like, can't believe it. It's been that
Oh
long.
yeah, that was like almost a year ago. Wasn't She-Hulk last August?
Hmm.
So, all right, so we jump right into our Marvel intro. We open in Moscow with my favorite agent Everett Ross, my fave, and we hear this voiceover of this agent Prescott talking, and he's saying like imagine a world where information can't be trusted, where the people you interact with can't be trusted, all these things. And he's breaking down his theory that he has that 5 global terrorist attacks have now occurred in a you know significant period of time by seemingly 5 different groups. But his theory is that they all happened by the same people. They were all orchestrated by the same people. and they think it's going to cause a chain reaction that is basically going to result in World War III. And his big theory is that the Skrulls are behind this, and that 30 years ago, when Nick Fury and Carol Danvers came to Earth with the Skrulls, that they have now somehow infiltrated foreign governments and big terrorist groups and all that stuff. And Agent Everett Ross is like, but there could only be there's a tiny handful. There was only like 20 of them that came to Earth. That's not enough to cause like global domination. And he's saying that there could be more. Agent Prescott saying that there could be more, and we just wouldn't know.
Mm.
And then, they're talking about how Nick Fury hasn't been down to Earth in a while. He's on Saber, I looked into it, and in the comic books, it's a Skrull human aerospace defense system. So basically, that spaceship he's been
Mhm.
hanging out with, that we've seen him been hanging out with
Yeah.
since Spider-Man: Far From Home,
Yeah, and he
that
like
was
is that
revealed.
where he brought Monica Rambeau at the end of WandaVision, I think, or he like came to her and was like, "We're gonna go here." I think he
Oh,
was like
right,
recruiting her to bring her to Saber.
yeah. And basically, he hands him a piece of information that we don't get to see as the audience, but he's saying like, I think this is going to be the big one. This is going to be the one that ruins the world. And Agent Ross looks at this and is like, hey, let me just get this to Fury. We'll talk
Hmm.
about it with him. I'll see what I can do. Agent Prescott attacks him, doesn't let him leave, and then all of a sudden someone shoots Agent Prescott just as Everett Ross is getting strangled. So now Agent Ross runs out of the building. He comms to Maria Hill that he needs an extract, he needs help. Maria Hill's trying to navigate him through the streets of Moscow. He's getting chased by this big Russian man. And now they're running up the stairs. I thought this was cool, this sequence when they're running up
Hmm.
the stairs and the lights are coming on, so we like see them. And now they're running through rooftops. And all of a sudden, Agent Ross flies off of a rooftop, hits his head on another rooftop, lands on the street, but he's still going. He's crawling. He's trying to make it to the finish line. When all of a sudden, the Russian is revealed to be Talos. And Maria Hill is like, what the heck? Talos, what are you doing here? Everett Ross doesn't make it. He's too cut up and bruised. And then it's revealed he transforms into a Skrull. So Agent Everett Ross in this moment was never actually Agent Everett Ross. It was a Skrull impersonating him.
Yeah, so this is the first question I have for you. How long did it take you to realize it was a scroll? Because I immediately, as soon as I saw the scene going down, because Martin Freeman, when he showed up, I was like, wait, I forgot. I didn't realize Martin Freeman was going to be in this. He's in none of the marketing, and then I was like, oh, he's
Mm,
probably not actually
mm,
that. And so I immediately clicked it right away. But I liked the reveal of it. I liked how like you could kind of tell something was weird. Um, and then the other question is, does that mean Agent Ross and Black Panther Wakanda Forever was this Agent Ross or the real Agent Ross? Like then that brings up all the questions of when is he actually? And I think that's going to be one of the more interesting things about the
yeah,
series is like, oh
sure.
shit, wait, how long have they been lying to us? And are they lying to us? When are
Yeah.
they lying to us? And
I'm
I just gotta say,
yeah.
Richard Dormer, man, I'm sad that he was like a one episode guest role because he
Yeah.
is so freaking good. I
Yeah.
love his voice. I love his
Mhm.
voice. It's like
Mhm.
perfect for that opening to set the vibe of the show. I think the show is a little stale, a little boring, but I think his voice really fits the tone a lot.
Yeah.
He's got such a good voice. I loved him in Game of Thrones too. So it was a cool one episode performance, and same with Martin Freeman. But what were your thoughts on this, and what are your thoughts on Agent Ross?
Dill, I'm not gonna lie, that thought did cross my mind. I was thinking like, "Oh my gosh, like, does that mean that Everett Ross has just never been Everett Ross and it's always been a Skrull? And now that would mean that Everett Ross is gone and we're never gonna see him again in the MCU unless, it's like in flashbacks and stuff." So I'm hoping that there's a real Everett Ross and this one was just impersonating him. I
Yeah.
think that's more likely or not
I
what's
was,
what's happening.
I was gonna say if they killed off Everett Ross and Maria Hill on Kelsey in one episode,
No.
I don't think she could deal.
I wouldn't be able to handle it at all. So then we get our intro to this. It's very like, you know, everyone that's getting introducing characters like half scroll, like half their human form. So it's kind of like alluding to this premise, this idea that like literally any character you watch in the show could be a scroll. You
All right,
don't know.
Kels. I want to talk to you about the intro. I think this is important. So the
Okay.
only news we were gonna have news, but I was like, the news pertains to the show. Marvel has come out recently to say that this title sequence has been entirely created by AI. And
Oh.
a lot of people are really mad about it for obvious reasons. I mean, that's why there's a writer's strike going on right now, is because studios keep threatening, well, if you don't, if you want more pay, then we'll just have AI do your work for you. And I I get Marvel's intention to maybe kind of like they wanted the AI kind of style of everything looking a little weird,
Mm.
but in my opinion, why not just have an artist make things look
Make
weird
it look weird, yeah.
instead of because normally for people who don't know, when you use AI is not just creating images. It's not. It's using artwork that already exists to create images. So
Right.
you're essentially plagiarizing someone else's art, who even knows whose art, to make your own title sequence when you've had great artists make title sequences in the past for an effect you definitely want, but you can easily get from someone else. If you hired someone to say, "Hey, make this look trippy and almost like an AI did it," someone could still do that.
Yeah.
But I think the actual morality of using AI, I don't know. I was like, wow, this is like a new low. And I
Hmm.
think that also kind of fuels my disdain for the show because that was like
Mm.
the only talking point when it came out. Everyone was talking about it on Twitter, and I was like, all right, people might be overreacting. But then I was like, you know what? No, like, it's icky, especially when like we've heard so much stuff about visual effects departments and the way people are treated on sets and stuff. And now all of a sudden, oh, this job is replaced. And then what? What's next? Are actors going to be started like voice acting? Let's say like if there's ever an android, maybe we wouldn't get a Paul Bettany. Maybe they just make it an AI, you know? And that's
Mm.
kind of like
Yeah.
icky to me. I'm like, I don't know. I didn't like it, and I don't like how they use it every time. I thought it might have been like a one episode experiment, but no, that is the title sequence.
Mm.
And we didn't bring this up, but they got rid of the Marvel intro altogether. They like did a very quick 5 second, like it starts and then it's just like Marvel Studios, and I was like,
Right.
you're literally on Disney Plus. It's not like you have a time restraint. Why can't you add the extra minute? Like,
Right.
I don't know. It's just weird to me. It almost feels like maybe there's like a new change and they're like, oh, Marvel people want to change, but I don't think this is the change necessarily people are asking for.
Yeah,
But
no.
I don't know. It was icky to me. I was like, why? Why? Just why? Like, I don't think you needed it to do an
Yeah,
AI.
I don't like
'Cause it
it.
looks, I don't like it. It doesn't look good.
Considering that it's Marvel and it's Disney, like, you can afford a team to make an intro for you. You don't need a robot to do it, and I just hate this idea of anybody in the entertainment industry getting replaced by AI by any means, because I feel like once you start pulling at that thread, when do you stop? So,
Right. And I saw a critic kind of defend it saying, well, they wanted to get a reaction from you. That's their goal. And I'm like, you could get a reaction other ways, I feel. And
yeah.
and like I get the whole thing of like you want people to talk about your show, but it's not positive talk. Like I'd rather
Mhm.
people not talk about my show very much, but still like it, than ton of people talking about my show, but in a negative light. I'm like,
Mhm.
I get it, it's getting eyes, but I don't think people are watching the show to see the AI sequence. If they weren't going to watch it,
Right.
I don't think this is going to entice them to. I think if anything, they're going to see the news, be pissed about it, watch a clip of the AI online, and then talk about it rather than going to Disney Plus to actually watch it or buying a Disney Plus subscription to watch it to see the controversy. Like I just don't know
Right.
what their goal was. And if it is to cut costs and cut corners, I don't like that. I don't like that.
Yeah, I don't like it either. Well, I feel like Kevin Feige and Marvel as a whole is, I don't know how true this is, but I'd like to believe that they're good at listening to what the public wants because, at the end of the day, like, they did make an entire movie based off of fan service, Spider-Man: No Way Home. Um, so I feel like if there's enough uproar about it and a much and, the fandom makes it clear that this is just not what we want for our creatives and for our actors in this franchise, hopefully a change may happen. So we don't like it, Kevin Feige.
Change it.
Change it. So after our boo disgusting horrible AI intro, hated it. Nick Fury is back on Earth. He arrives back on Earth. He's looking a little older. He's walking with a limp. He's got no eye patch. I know, this was something we saw in the trailers for the show, but I love the no eye patch look. I
Yeah.
don't know why. I just like it. I like how he's just like scars out, cloudy eye visible. He's no bullshit Nick Fury
I
at
was gonna
this
say
point.
this is a Nick Fury that doesn't give a fucking shit at
He
all. Yeah,
doesn't give
he's
a
like,
single fuck.
and it's kind of refreshing because I feel like this is kind of like almost. I feel like coming off Phase 4 generally we liked it, but I feel like the general perception had a lot of problems with Phase 4, like the general public, and I think this is kind of like Nick Fury just being like, man, this franchise is tired. I'm tired. Like,
Right.
'cause he is the guy who put together the Avengers, and he looks
Yeah.
tired as fuck. And it's
Yeah.
obviously a choice. I don't think it's Samuel L. Jackson being tired because this is the first time he gets to lead something. So obviously he's probably excited. But I like the choice to make him this tired guy because maybe
Yeah.
this is going to lead to some sort of revelation that, you know what? Why am I doing this? Why are we doing this? We should be changing for the good, not trying to just revert
Right.
back. Which I like. I like the characterization of Nick Fury here. It's a very tired Nick Fury, and then maybe that's why I felt it was a little boring because he's so kind of over it. But it was a
Mhm.
cool choice. It was a cool choice.
And I just like how we're just getting more of Nick. We're getting more backstories. We're getting more, you know, how he kind of operates as a spy and everyone that he was before he was Nick Fury. This is like what I feel like we're getting. And I just, he's a fascinating dude. He's Samuel L. Jackson, great actor, great performance. I'm loving it. I'm eating it up. So Maria Hill picks him up from when he lands back on Earth, and we get takes him to like wherever they're staying, their safe house, wherever it is. And we get a Talos and Nick reunion. And we see that Talos has this plant, and he says that, oh, like Soren wanted to take this plant wherever she went. This is a plant from our home planet. And we find out in this scene that Soren, his wife, is actually dead. She is
Yeah,
no longer with us anymore.
yeah.
Tragic.
I had to look back. I was like, wait, did I miss it? Like, did they show it? And I was like, no. And then I
Oh
was like, wait,
no,
does it happen in Captain Marvel? No. I was like,
no.
Far From Home. No. Like we just hear about it off screen, which was a little sad because I liked
Yeah.
her.
I have a feeling that at some point in some episode we're gonna get
Oh, we'll
like
get the flashback. Okay.
we're gonna get the big reveal as to
Mhm.
how it happened.
Right.
But as of right now, we're living in a time where Soren is past. So they do this thing which I later realize is like a scroll, like that must be a custom among
Hmm.
scrolls where they like put their foreheads together.
Yeah.
And they just like did it and I was like, "Oh my god, like they're in love. They're best friends." I love it.
Hey, if that's the turn this show takes to where it's like Brokeback Mountain, but Nick Fury and Talos, I wouldn't mind it. Like,
I'm here
because
for it.
I like obviously R.I.P. to Talos' wife, but also like
Right.
we find out something in episode 2 that's also pretty big about Nick Fury.
R-
But
Right.
but it would be a cool twist. I was like, when it happened, I was like, this is very Avatar, not Navi. I mean, I know you haven't seen those movies, but it's a little
Yeah.
sexy, a little sexy.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. So this I had to make note of because we get reminded of this fact 3 different times that I'll let you know throughout the episode. But basically, everyone keeps telling Nick Fury, post blip, you're different. The blip happened and you completely changed. And you haven't been here. You've been up in Saber. You haven't been on Earth. You haven't upheld your end of the deal. Um, we find out that Talos's daughter Gaia, who, the young girl who we meet in Captain Marvel, has also disappeared some way. He
Mm.
goes, "You disappeared, Carol Danvers disappeared, Gaia disappeared. All these people are disappearing on me." Um, and basically we find out that this person named Gravik is the big daddy of our story,
Mm.
and that um, we find out that basically this I thought was really cool. The scrolls are immune to radio activity, so they are hiding out in abandoned nuclear power plants, which is why this is all taking place in Russia because
Mm.
Russia has the most abandoned nuclear power plants out of any country just because it's just the biggest by, square
Yeah,
feet, I'd
yeah.
say.
I have a theory on Gravik, but we'll talk about it after episode 2 because it
Sure.
it involves episode 2.
Okay. Okay.
I don't
So
know if you're picking up what I'm putting down, but
I am, but we'll see.
mm,
So basically, Gravik's goal is his goal in this episode is that he wants to bomb Russia to create conflict around the world. He basically wants to start World War III because he wants Earth to be their home. He doesn't want to live amongst humans. He wants to annihilate humans and have it a new scroll civilization. So then we cut to a scene with Rhodey and the president, where basically Rhodey, the president, played by Dermot Mulroney, who is in everything, literally
I
everything.
and
He
I don't complain because I
he
love that guy. He's so good.
he's been in Friends, he's been in New Girl, he's been in Shameless,
He was just in
he's
Scream,
he's just in Scream, he was
and he
just
was
the
good. He was really good in Scream.
yeah, he was just the
Yeah.
dad in the Scream movies. Yeah, he's been in everything. Can never remember his name. It's Dermot Mulroney. I'm committing this to
Yeah.
memory.
I,
Um,
some people confuse his name with Dylan McDermott because there's Dylan McDermott and Dermot
yes,
Mulrooney. So a
yes,
lot of people call him Dylan McDermott, but I know he's not Dylan McDermott because I'm a Dylan, so I know my Dylans, and I know who Dylan McDermott is, and Dylan McDermott is not Dermot Mulrooney. Dermot Mulrooney's Dermot Mulrooney, not Dylan McDermott.
yes, absolutely. If you followed that, good for you.
Yeah,
Um,
subtitles.
so basically, we just get the scene of Rhodey filling in the president as to like what's going on. And that Nick Fury is seemingly back on Earth. That's the big news that
Mm.
everyone wants to know. So Nick takes all this information in about Gravik, and he's like, I gotta go for a walk. And on his walk, he encounters a little girl playing with a rainbow ball. And then he gets taken into a van. He gets abducted. He gets a bag thrown over his head. He's thrown in the back of a van. He doesn't seem too concerned, and neither am I, because if I know anything about Nick Fury, I know that he's always one step ahead of everyone in the situation. He's very calm, cool, collected.
Yeah, I never had to worry about Nick Fury or Maria Hill or oh fuck, wait. Yeah, never
Ah, Dylan, don't say
They may
that.
I'm sorry. I'll just yeah, I mean, we'll get there, but I was surprised, but
We'll get to
I knew Nick Fury would be okay because he's the main character, but yeah, I never had a concern for him.
right. So it turns out he was kidnapped by Olivia Colman, who is just a delight on any screen
She's so
she's on. And she's playing a woman named Sonia Fallsworth, I believe is her last name. And basically, they both have the same goal, but they want to achieve it with different ways. So she's like a by any means necessary kind of woman. Nick Fury, he still has a relationship with these scrolls, so he's not ready to go in guns a
Mhm,
blazing.
right.
Um, and in this scene, we get our second mention that ever since Thanos' snap, Nick Fury has been different. And I think she says something along the lines of like, I think you realize that no matter how hard you work or no matter how like hard you fight, there's always going to be someone bigger and stronger and more capable that can overpower you. And I think this is what you realize throughout, Avengers, Infinity War, and Endgame. And you just haven't been the same since. And it's yeah, and it's taken a toll on him for sure. And she basically as a whole doubts his abilities. Um, but Nick Fury does. He's always thinking bugs her flat. He puts a little camera on the owl, on this little owl statue,
Yeah,
just so he
that's
can
cool.
obtain intel secretively. Because he's trying to ask her, like, hey, do you know anything about this bombs deal that went down in Kazakhstan? Like, and she's like, oh no, don't know anything. And he's like, okay, well, you're obviously lying to me. So whenever you want to come clean about that,
Right.
you have my number, you know how to reach me. um and basically now we finally meet Amelia Clark's character because a man named Beto has come looking for refuge in the Skrull compound. And so she greets him at the front gate, drives him up to the compound. She says, welcome to New Skrullus. So I guess their old planet was Skrullus. That makes
Yeah.
sense. In
Mhm.
my head, I was thinking, I don't think I know the name of their original planet, but now I do.
I do. Trivia.
So, okay, relax. All right. So basically, oh, and in this moment, she kind of tells him like, "Oh, take your natural form." And so he transforms into a scroll. He transforms back into what they call their shells when they're inhabiting another person's skin. When they're impersonating someone, they call it their shell. Um, And I wanted to just point out that I thought the CGI was rather good that,
Mhm.
transformed them back to and fro from being a scroll and being a human. Um, and so on the way up, we find out that his name is Beto. And basically, this compound has all the scroll fixins. They don't live like humans do. They have scroll food, they drink scroll wine, they wear their scroll skins, their natural form. Basically, this is a haven
Mhm.
if you're a scroll. And we find out that the warriors, the people that actually go out and fight in the resistance, keep their shells on because the longer they keep it on, the less people are able to tell, who they truly are. Um, so and basically this is how they get the shells. Dill, I'm glad you asked because I'm going to tell you.
Oh yeah, sorry. How do they get the shells? Go.
This is how they get the
Okay.
shells.
Yeah.
So basically, they kidnap civilians, they put them in a machine that I guess is keeping them alive, but just putting them to sleep. I don't think they're dead. Um, and the scroll looks at the person, inhabits their skin, and then they do a little magic trick with their hand. They put their hand on their forehead and they say, take their mind. So then they take their mind. So now I guess this is kind of getting around the fact that, when we learned in Captain Marvel, when scrolls, took over someone else's body, they only had recent memories. But I guess this extra little taking over the mind thing gives them kind of the whole backstory of the
Hmm.
person that they're in so that
Right.
they can be more convincing.
Mm.
Um, so basically they steal their identities. Oh yeah, and then we have this one guy who gets overtaken. He's an American and he's a part of this group called Americans Against Russia, which is going to come into it's going to be important later.
Hmm.
So now we're spying on Sonya, and we find out that only 5 specialists in Russia can build the bomb that Gravik wants. And Sonya is going to go after them, but Nick Fury decides, well, we have to go after him and get there before Sonya does. And they plan out this whole, you know, mission to not only attack the MI6 operatives, which I'm assuming is kind of like the CIA of
Hmm.
England.
Yeah.
Um, they also want to get to the guy who can create the bombs, to stop this from happening.
Right.
And so Gravik, we cut to a scene where one of Gravik's henchmen, we learn his name later, I don't know it right now, warns Gravik that Fury's in town. And Gravik's just like, oh, is he? That's, doesn't really phase him. And so basically, he then recruits Amelia Clark because we don't know her character's name yet. Amelia Clark to get the bombs. He's like, you got to pick up these packages, make sure they get back here safely. So now we're, incapacitating the the bomb maker, whatever. Talos incapacitates. Ooh, hard word to say. The MI6 operatives by pretending to be one. We get this little funny dialogue where we're kind of realizing the extent of like the scroll's powers through Talos. How, they're able to fight really well. They're really strong. They're really hard to kill. He's able to rip like chains off of a fence. And Nick Fury's like, oh, not bad for a 136-year-old. And he's like, well, I'm not even 40 yet in human years. And I haven't even had my midlife crisis. I haven't even bought anything for my midlife crisis. And then he goes to Nick Fury like, oh, what did you get? And Nick Fury goes, the Avengers, which I thought was
That's
funny.
good. Yeah.
So now we have Fury and Talos. They confront the painter, and Maria Hill trails Amelia Clark because she's like, this girl kind of looks suspicious. I'm gonna go on a little foot chase here.
Mhm.
And basically, the painter ends up being a Skrull who knows Talos because he's like, your name's not Agent Keller, you're Talos, and they get into this tussle. He's telling Nick Fury, stand down. I got this. I can overpower this guy without killing him. Don't worry about it. Nick Fury obviously, sees that his friend is in trouble, ends up shooting and killing the Skrull. Which, we can see that how much this upsets Talos because, he doesn't want to see his comrades,
Right.
taken apart one by one. Like he wants to figure out how to help them, even the
Right.
ones in the resistance group.
Right. Right.
And so we see this great moment of Ben Mendelsohn, who I'm sure was like, it feels like, especially in episode 2, like I feel like he was like, guys, I want to be in scroll makeup as little as possible.
Yeah.
Make it happen. I want to just be myself for the
Yeah.
majority of making this show because
Which is
we
good though,
never
because
see
I
him.
like I like Ben Mendelsohn a lot, and I think
No, I
yeah,
do, yeah.
it's less restrictive, I guess. But yeah.
Yeah, for sure. Um, so basically, Maria follows her into this train station, but Amelia Clark, she caught on that someone was following her, so she's waiting for her in the dark in the tunnels. She overpowers her. Talos is miraculously just shows up and is there, follows her into the tunnels with a gun. He, fires one shot that misses and is like, all right, last warning, like, stop. And we find out in this moment that Amelia Clark is Gaia, Talos's daughter.
Yep.
And then we also get another big reveal for Gaia's end, at least, that she doesn't even know that her mother is dead because Talos tells her last words were "Find Gaia." So this is, and she's like, how did it happen? And he's like, why don't you ask the people that you work for how your mother died? So we get, it's alluded to the fact that like Gravik may or may not had something to do with Soren's death. So I guess we'll get there when we get there. But at the end of the day, he kind of lets Gaia go, and Gaia's able to make it back into the compound with the bombs. And then we have this moment where, after this whole big kerfuffle, Nick and Maria, they need to get a drink. So they go to this bar. Nick Fury has an encounter with an old man who says something weird like, "You'll never be the man you once were." And it's in this moment where I'm like, this guy knows something. He knows what's up. Nick Fury's just like, all right, just like get this guy a drink. I'm going to ignore him, whatever. Then he sits down. He has this whole conversation with Maria. He says that she's like, oh, yeah, this is the third time that it gets brought up that Nick Fury is different post blip. If you were not convinced yet that Nick Fury is different post the blip, here's your final.
That's what I'm saying, though. It's just it's they don't need to make it this long. Like it feels like so much of this is just padding time. I don't know.
Right. I don't know.
Like I don't need to hear it again. Like, yeah, I get it. I could tell. You don't even need to tell me in the first place.
Yeah,
I get it.
right.
Trust me, we get it.
It was visible from the second I saw Nick Fury that
right.
he was different. He was a changed man.
Yeah.
So I get what you're saying, Bill. So basically, she's like, why now? Why come back down to Earth now and not all the countless other times I called you? And he says that he owes it to Talos, but Maria suspects that he's talking about someone else. She's like, are you sure you're not talking about someone else? And I think we might have found out who that someone else is in episode 2, because I was confused at this moment who she was referring to, but I guess now it makes sense.
Yeah.
And then she says that, everyone's kind of doubting this Nick Fury. I think that it's purposeful. I think that walking with the limp, and he's kind of playing up the dramatics here so people undermine him and doubt him, because he's going to come back swinging at some point. I think that this is all part of an act. I think that this is all part of Nick Fury's psychological game, because if there's one thing I know about Nick Fury, it's that he's a smart cookie. So, Maria tells him something like, the Nick Fury I used to know used to be, 3 steps ahead of everyone else. And that you always said that if you weren't sure of the steps ahead of you, that you shouldn't be ashamed to take a step back, kind of thing. And she tells him, you should check your footing because someone's going to get hurt. And it's rough. I didn't catch that when I first watched the episode, but when on my rewatch, I caught it and I said,
damn.
yeah,
right.
They were warning us in this scene what was going to happen.
Yeah.
And so Gaia gets back to the compound. She tells the henchman, I had a little trouble. And he's like, anyone that you know? And she says, no. She lies and because doesn't tell them that it's her father, because obviously her father working with Nick Fury is probably public enemy number 1 amongst the Skrulls. So she doesn't give up her dad, and that she says that maybe they should postpone the fight. Maybe they should postpone this, big battle. And he's like, no, this is more reason to do it, when we planned it. So then we have this meeting where she secretly meets up with Talos and is like, all right, here's the details of what's going on. This is what's going to happen. There's going to be 3 different people with bags, with backpacks. I'm going to spray infrared spray on them so you can tell which ones they are. And, Gravik's going to be expecting that you're there, just so you know. But if there's any chance of you putting a stop to this, this is it. And so we get to the big we get to the big bombing, basically.
Climax,
we get to the big climax of this episode. and it seems to be like there's some sort of festival going on. We got Talos and Maria Hill. They're trailing the people with the marked bags. Once they get to them, they turn out to be decoys. Meanwhile, Nick Fury is getting distracted because he sees the little girl with the ball again, with
Mm-hmm.
from the beginning of the episode. And then he sees the man from the bar. And then he sees someone else that he bumped into at some point in this episode. And it's clear that
It's
this is
weird.
a
Yeah.
Skrull who's shapeshifting. And then it's revealed that it's Gravik. And Gravik has known from basically the beginning of this episode that Nick Fury is back on Earth and that he's been trailing Nick Fury this entire time. And then he turns to Nick, shows the detonator, detonates the bombs, and all the information that Gaia gave us turned out to be useless because
Mm.
it ended up happening anyway. And so now we get this shot of Fury going up to Maria Hill. He goes, "Oh, Hill," shoots her point blank in the stomach. Now, excuse me.
Yeah. What are your thoughts on this?
Okay. I was waiting for Maria Hill to turn out to be a Skrull because before it was revealed that it was Gravik pretending to be Nick Fury. I was like, oh, there's no way that's Maria Hill. Like Nick Fury must have known. Like that's not my Maria Hill. I got to get rid of this,
So you
bad
thought that was
person ever.
actually Nick, but not Maria.
Yes, that's what
Ah,
I was waiting
no,
for. And
no.
then all of a sudden, it's Gravik because he goes to do the kill shot, and then we see the real Nick Fury running in, and she's dying, she's bleeding out on this Moscow plaza, and she's like, it was you that shot me, and he's like, oh no, like it was not me, like don't let that be your dying thought,
Yeah, that's what
kind of
makes it
thing.
even sadder, I think. And it's
Yeah.
interesting because I think the thing is like if it bleeds red, it's a human. If it doesn't, it's a scroll, like kind of thing.
Mm.
Like the scrolls, I don't think bleed normally; they just turn.
Oh,
So as soon as I
maybe.
saw the real blood, I was like, yeah,
Ah,
she's done. I
yeah,
thought
you're
she might
right.
survive it. Like I knew she it was her who was getting shot, but I was like, she might survive it. And then at the end, I was like, no, they're killing her off. They're killing her off.
So I put Maria dies question mark.
And then the
And
second episode very much confirms it. They're like, here's a coffin and here's her mom. I'm like, oh my god.
I don't
Yeah.
know. I'm still not convinced. Who knows?
Okay. All right. All
People
right.
have faked their deaths. Nick Fury has faked his death in the
True.
MCU before. He has a whole gravestone. He has
True.
a grave
So
site.
you think this could be like all part of their plan, maybe? Like,
Maybe. I hope so. I don't want her to be gone. Because listen, Maria Hill, maybe not someone that you immediately think of one of your top favorites in the MCU, but this
she's
is
a
a
staple.
character that we've had for the past 10 years.
Mhm.
Like, this is a character that's been with us, and it's someone that we've grown to really, or at least I have grown to really like her, and,
Yeah.
her presence is like a good comfort.
The only negative, yeah, I agree. The only thing is like this
Mhm.
was supposed to be the opportunity for her and Nick Fury to kind of get their own thing, and I get more so him than her, but I was like, this is the opportunity to see her as like one of the lead characters, and then I realized I watched it because I didn't watch the whole episode back, but I did look back, and her name is not in the main credits. It's at the
Mm.
end. They go special guest star Kobe Smulders, special guest
Yeah,
star Martin Freeman, and that's when I
yeah,
kind of knew. I was like, oh, this was a one off for her, and that's when it clicked to me that she probably is dead. Because if she were gonna be in a few more episodes, like if she was gonna be alive, or if they were gonna do like flashbacks and shit, she would have just been a cast member on this. But because she's
yeah,
a special guest star, makes me think this is her one episode, and that also makes me think that she's not gonna live. Because if she's gonna live, they're gonna have her in this show more.
right.
And that's kind of where I was like, oh, so she's not recurring; she's a guest star. And that's where it kind of sunk into me. I was like, yeah, this is official. And it sucks. But maybe it's like she wanted out of the franchise, or maybe they were like always going to kill her, but they waited till this show to make it more monumental. I don't know. But it
Mm.
felt a little unceremonious because it's also the first episode. It's like, imagine if you're watching this for the first time. And granted, not many people do anymore. They usually watch the whole MCU. But what if you're just stumbling upon this on Disney Plus and you're like, I don't like the Marvel stuff, but this looks interesting. You have no idea who this woman is. You really don't care enough about her. She has like one or two scenes before that to where she gets to do stuff, but it doesn't really emotionally hit. It only hits for the people who are fans of her. And even then, I feel like one episode, it just didn't feel, it felt a little anticlimactic. And I feel like they
Yeah.
were going for something a lot more heavy. But I don't know. Yeah, I
Still,
don't know.
I've been avoiding IMDb because I don't want to know if she's in any more
Right.
episodes.
Right, and
I
she could be, but yeah, she's only credited as a special guest star to where I was like, I don't know.
right, and that is an aspect that makes me nervous. I'm not completely delusional. The way that it's a special guest star at the end, I was I was sad. Um, but I'm still holding out hope that
Cool.
there's still some sort of master plan here,
Yeah.
where they think that she's dead, but she's really not. Um, but the my feelings are more justified, I feel like, in episode 2, because I
Yeah.
feel like the way that Nick Fury is just so casual
About
post
her
Maria
death.
Hill's death
Mm.
makes it seem like maybe
Yeah.
something else is going on, because first of all, I will note, so episode 2
Yeah, let's
titled
transition into it, yeah, because
titled
we only got, like,
Promises.
15, 20 minutes, so let's
Yeah,
yeah.
I'll go faster with this episode. Promises, episode 2. Um, you know, we before we jump back to the scene of the crime, we get a flashback to 1995, where basically it's when the scrolls like first come to Earth. They're meeting. Oh, we get flashbacks from Captain Marvel to just kind of like jumpstart everyone's memory, and
It was
then we
weird that
jump.
they did it in episode 2 though, and not episode 1, like, the whole, like, "Oh, here's what the deal with the scrolls is." I
Oh,
get they probably
sure,
wanted to build the intrigue and mystery. I feel like if they had led with that in the first episode, the little flashbacks to Captain Marvel, I would've been
yeah,
like, "Oh, okay." It would've made a little more sense, but I don't know.
sure. But then we jump to the year 1997 in Brixton, London, and we're having this meeting with Talos and Nick Fury, and we meet a young Gravik at this time, and we find out that Gravik's he's kind of a badass. Both of his parents died on this ship he was commanding. He flew the ship himself. He flew it all the way to Earth from wherever he was. And so he's a little bit of a fighter. Nick Fury can make some good use of him. And so basically, Nick's promise to the Skrulls is that he will work on finding them a planet to call their own if he if they help him keep Earth safe.
Mhm.
And we see that the first Skrull to volunteer to set up this arrangement is Soren. And she has her daughter there. Guy is there present to witness this happen. And we see that a bunch of other Skrulls step forward to say that they agree to Nick's proposition. But Gravik doesn't volunteer. He still remains skeptical. Maybe it's because he's a child when we meet him in this,
Right,
but
right.
I just wanted to make a point of saying that. So now we're back at the scene of the crime, and a man basically drags Nick away from Maria's body. He's thrown into a car once again. The man is then revealed to be Talos, because I guess Talos saw that, there's nothing that Nick could have done for this. It wasn't safe. They needed to get out of there.
Mhm.
And so now we're on this train. We're on a train from Moscow to Warsaw, and we kind of have this bit where Talos is pretending to be a Russian woman, some Russian policemen, whatever their police force is, are going train car by train car looking for an African American man on the train. And she goes, an African American American, okay, an African American man on a train from Moscow to Warsaw, you're more likely to encounter aliens, which is funny because they are encountering an alien. Anyway, good bit.
Uh,
Um, so basically, we get this anecdote from Nick's life, and this is kind of the conversations that I don't know if you felt were kind of just like filler and taking too long, but these were the kind of conversations and moments of this episode of this show so far that I really liked, where we just
yeah.
kind of get like a sit down talking
Mhm.
moment between two characters.
I think this one and then the one later with Rhodey are 2 really good scenes. Like, I think those scenes are
Yes.
good.
Okay,
I
great.
just
I'm
I just
glad you
think it's
said
a
that.
lot of the other stuff in the middle that I was like, "I
Sure.
don't know." Like, there's those 2 scenes were good, but that's the thing, it's like, those 2 scenes are all we need, but then they add, like, 3 or 4 more, um,
Yeah.
on top of that, but I didn't mind this one.
So we get this great anecdote about how, Nick used to ride the trains up from Alabama to Detroit. It was obviously during the time of segregation, so him and his family had to sit, in the car for people of color. And he's telling about how they packed a lunch. They brought fried chicken and deviled eggs and all this great stuff. And he used to play this game with his mom called "Tell Me Something I Don't Know." So basically, now he wants to play the game with Talos. He goes, "Tell me something I don't know about the attack on New Skrullis," because I think Nick is starting to realize that there might be more Skrulls on Earth than he initially realized. And basically, Talos reveals that
There's a whole bunch.
there is a whole bunch because every Skrull from every pocket corner of the
Right.
galaxy that needed somewhere to go had to come had come to Earth. And
Hmm.
now they're all living amongst Earth. And Nick is furious because he's like, "Why didn't you just tell me?" They get into an argument about this for good reason because he's like, "Well, Nick, what happened to all the promises you made us 30 years ago?" And he's like, "Listen, the the host of the planet gets to set the terms and conditions of the
Right.
visitation. And Talos believes that Skrulls and humans can coexist together. And Nick Fury says humans can't even coexist amongst each other. Like, you've seen that for the past 30 years. Like, how could you think that this arrangement could work out? And so basically, we get the shot of Maria's funeral, of the casket. We meet her mother, Elizabeth,
Hmm.
and basically, she's sad because she's like, Nick, like you've told me that you were gonna keep my daughter safe like
Right.
all these years, this
Yeah.
and
And
now she's dead.
she's also kind of doing the same thing we both did, where it's like, are you sure she like you're bullshitting? There's something I'm not getting. Like,
Right.
and it's almost like, yeah, there's like a piece of information that's off. The body language from Nick Fury is a little off. It's just an
Yes.
overall weird atmosphere. Yeah.
And this scene with this whole scene in the train car, like, obviously he's like shaken up, I guess, a little bit, but there's no moment where he even talks about losing Hill. There's no
Hmm.
moment where he like even brings her up. The only time he talks about Maria Hill is in this scene with with her mother, and then the
Hmm.
rest of the episode never brought up again. And
Yeah.
this is
I know
supposed to
this
be
is
your
his
right
partner.
hand woman.
I know. It's a little weird. It just feels, yeah, like I don't know. I'll wait
So
till
anyway,
see how this goes. No, it's like one of those things. I just want to see where they take this because I
yeah.
really don't know. It feels like the moments that need time to like like this moment needed to breathe, but they kind of glazed over it, and then moments that don't need to be long are long. I don't know. Continue.
So basically, then we get this news report that Russia basically wants to retaliate against
Mm.
America right away because the
Yeah.
main suspect in the bombings is the Skrull posing as the Americans against Russia person. So it feels like a terrorist attack.
Yeah.
They want to retaliate.
I did like this because all the news reporters, they were, news reporter. Then Christopher Guest, or not Christopher Guest, Christopher McDonald is one of the scrolls. He was like an old actor, not old, but like he's an actor from like the 80s, 90s. He was
Yeah.
Shooter McGavin in Happy Gilmore.
Yeah.
He comes up and I'm like, they got Christopher McDonald to play like a one-off like news reporter. What? And then like you see them all gathering in the next scene
Yes.
with whatever his name is. Sorry, Kingsley Benadir's character, the villain, Gravik. No, is that his name?
Gravik. Yeah,
Yeah,
Gravik.
Gravik. I'm learning. The trivia's sticking. But
There you go.
Gravik, like you realize that these are all the scrolls who are like talking to Gravik. So I'm like, oh, okay. So like
Yeah.
the news reporters are also scrolls.
You realize that all these world leaders are Skrulls. They
Yeah.
like the Prime Minister of England is a Skrull. And so
Yeah.
basically he tells them about his whole plan about how he wants to overthrow Earth and that he wants their support. And we do get one of them does bring up the fact there goes, what if they call in the Avengers? And he goes, "Oh, you don't think I don't have a plan for that?" So Gravik has even planned something. We'll probably never find out because we're probably never gonna get the Avengers, featured in this show, but he does have a contingency plan just in case they arrive.
It is funny
Um,
because it's like you gotta now justify why you wouldn't have the Avengers in some of these now. Like you gotta find a way to bring it up because why wouldn't
right.
you just? So
Which
yeah, it's interesting, and they do
they
later
do
too.
bring it up
Yeah.
again, yeah.
Hmm.
And so they vote Gravik as their new general, I guess, of the council. And the one woman, Shirley, I'm not sure what country she's in charge of, but she does not submit to this. She goes,
Yeah.
"No, this is not what this council has been for. I don't agree to this." And Gravik says, "All right, well, you can go then." And I was very worried about her well-being for the remainder of this episode.
Right.
So
Right.
basically, she phones Talos right away and is like, "Hey, this is what they're planning. Shit's gonna get real."
Mhm.
And Talos, you know, um, asks Shirley basically to set up a meeting between him and Gravik because he wants to, talk about Gaia and her
Mhm.
role in all of this. And so Gaia discovers some weird stuff that's happening at the compound. Gravik is not being as open and as kind of an open book as they want him to be, they have this whole secret science thing happening where they have two scientists that, the henchmen have been going out to harvest something that they need to make this machine work. And they turn on the machine. We get to see that it gets really bright. It kind of looks like a dome kind of thing, but we don't get to actually see what it does. Um, and then we cut to a scene where Colonel Rhodes is kind of meeting with a bunch of uh,
Mhm.
um, world leaders from different countries to discuss the happenings in Moscow. He basically has to answer why two Americans, Nick Fury and Maria Hill, were in Moscow during the time of these bombings. And he's like, this is all alleged. We don't know if they were actually there. Photos that have been supplied from Russia cannot be trusted, basically.
Right.
And so after this meeting, and Slovakia for some reason keeps giving him attitude. I don't know if it's because Slovakia is a scroll. Who knows what's going on? So basically, after the meeting, he gets a call from Nick Fury, and they plan to meet at this bar. And Fury warns him about. So basically, Rhodey's pissed at Fury because he didn't stop the attack, and he's been AWOL for who knows how long, ever since
Yeah.
the blip. And Fury warns him about the scrolls, but Rhodey already knew about the scrolls. He's like, yeah, there was like a top secret presentation on them that I got to oversee. And so Rhodey suggests like, why don't we call the Avengers if you think that there's such a problem? And Nick Fury says if they get replicated, they can get turned into like terrorists
Right.
just like that.
And that's
So
scary because then you're not gonna be able to stop a Hulk-sized scroll. You know what I mean?
right. And so basically they have this great conversation about how they're basically two men of color in positions of power that would have never happened, 50 years ago. And we get an Alexander Pierce drop. Like I love how Nick
Hmm.
Fury was like, "Why do you think like we had to take this power from like mediocre white men who don't deserve it?" And I just love how he was
Yeah.
like the Alexander Pierces of the world.
Right.
And
Yeah. Yeah. This
and
is a
I just
great
thought,
scene. Great
yeah,
scene.
this is a great scene and a great conversation. And Rhodey's like, "Listen, you're right. Like this was power that we had to earn ourselves. This wasn't something that was given to us, but we weren't given this power just to give it to mediocre men who do look like us. And I'm not abusing this power just because you're someone who also just happens to look like me." And at the end of the scene, Rhodey fires Nick Fury,
Yeah.
and he's like, and Rhodey's pissed. He's like, I didn't have to get picked to do this job. I
Right.
volunteered to do this
Hmm.
because you've been acting ridiculous ever since the blip, basically. If in case you weren't sure, it's because of the blip. And this is when I started to second guess Rhodey. I was like, is Rhodey a
Right.
scroll?
Yeah. Yeah. Because also it's weird because it's like
Um,
you would think Nick Fury's the one who appointed all the Avengers. Now Rhodey has the power to fire Nick Fury. It's just very interesting how the hierarchy has changed a little bit within the
yeah.
Avengers and who's has control over who.
And then we get this great line from Nick Fury where he goes, "I'm sorry, but Nick, you're out." And he goes, "I'm Nick Fury. Even when I'm out, I'm in." And I've never
Yeah, it was
knew
cool.
something to be more true than that line because even when he's
Yeah.
out, he's in. Even when we thought he was dead in The Winter Soldier, he was alive. That's
Right.
all I'm going to say. So basically, now we cut to Sonya's having her own little
Hmm.
interrogation with the scroll that they
Yeah.
captured, who's
Yeah.
impersonating the American.
Yeah.
And she's just like going
Yeah.
about it very casually.
She's this is Olivia Colman, right? She's pumping the
Yes,
life into all these episodes. She's like always
yes,
my highlight. She's great in the scene.
absolutely. And so now they're literally in a literal butcher shop. They have all these
Hmm.
tough men around them. He's like, "Listen, I've thrown everything I can at this man. I don't know how you think you're going to get him to talk." And she's like, "Listen, I got it, buddy. Also, where's the escape hatch just in case?" And so she ends up injecting him with something that makes his blood boil. And she's like, you don't want to let your blood get to like 160 degrees or whatever it is. And so he's able to get some answers out of him that the two that he doesn't know where the compound is because that's kept a secret, but he does
Hmm.
know that Gravik has this some sort of like he has these two scientists, a married couple that go by the last name Dalton, the wife's name is Rosa, who are working on this machine that uh, the scroll thinks his name is Brogan. Brogan thinks it is meant to make the scrolls stronger. And so that's then Gravik shows up to rescue him. Sonya goes out the escape hatch. She has her own little escape route.
Badass.
Um, Meanwhile, at the compound, Gaia is doing her looking into her own research because she
Yeah.
wants to know what's going on.
Did you
And we
see?
get
Yeah, I was gonna say, keep going. Yeah, the Easter
I
eggs.
sure
I know
did.
you did.
Yeah.
I know you.
We got some Easter eggs. Like, she looks up the scientist name. Her name's Rosa Dalton, and she looks at basically all the things that she's been experimenting on, I gathered. And so she's been experimenting on a Groot, a Frost Beast, Coal Obsidian, and the treatment that Aldrich Killian made in Iron Man 3,
Yeah,
Extremis. And these
yeah.
are all things that she kind of collected from
She's
Earth.
samples from. Yeah, so she
Yes.
might not have experimented on Groot, but she has a sample of
But
Groot,
she has a
which
sample
is
of Groot. Yes.
interesting. Yeah.
And so Gravik finds her and he's like, "Hey, what are you doing in here?" And she immediately switches the screen and is like, "Oh, I'm just, looking into Beto's progress. I think he's going to make a great warrior." So we kind of see that there's some secrecy happening between Gaia and Gravik, for better or for worse. Um, so basically, they rescue the scroll Brogan. Brogan is like, "Oh, I didn't tell them anything. Don't worry. We know that's a lie. Gravik
Right.
knows that's a lie." They take him back to what seems to be the outskirts of the compound, and when we think that Gravik's going to be, a little forgiving, he's not. He can't risk that this person who's given up intel, in back into the compound. So he does have the henchman. His name is Pagan. Finally, I wrote down his name. Pagan takes Brogan out to the woods, shoots him. And we kind of see this moment with Gaia where it's like, I don't really know who I'm working for anymore. This doesn't
Right.
seem like the people that I should be getting involved with. And
She's definitely
finally,
got the most going on in terms of,
yeah, there's a lot of turmoil happening between
right.
her relationship with her father now that her mother has passed, and now she's working with these people she doesn't think she should be working with. And finally, we get our tag here at the end of the episode where Nick Fury goes to see a woman who's a Skrull, but when we catch her again, she's transformed into a human woman, and she says, "Oh, did you forget something?" And we see that Nick goes back to the table by the door and puts on a wedding ring.
He's
And
married.
and he's married to a Skrull whose name is
Question.
Priscilla.
So that's the end of the episode. I like this
Yes.
episode better.
Yeah.
Do we think Nick knows she's a Skrull?
Yes.
I don't think so.
Really?
Why would she change her appearance?
I guess that would be interesting.
And this plays into my whole thing. I think Gravik is their son. Now, that was like my big theory. Listen, earlier in
Right.
episode 1, there's a
Yes.
shot where Nick Fury's sitting on the bed and then immediately cuts to Gravik looking out a window. It's like that classic shot where you take like one character and then you like the next shot is there some sort of connection between the two. And I think Gravik, I looked into this, is not a character from the comics. He's made for the show. I think Nick Fury didn't have a wife. That was introduced for the show. So why would you introduce a wife character and a new villain who is, and I don't want to, not just assume because of their race, but is a black character.
Right.
I think that's going to be a point of realization. I don't know if he knows he married a Skrull. I think she had a kid and didn't know how to tell Nick Fury. So she like hid the kid from him some way. I don't know. My wheels were turning, especially when she turned at the end. I was like, oh, okay. Because my whole thought was like, oh, what if he like had sex with a Skrull and this is the child? But then to know that he's married to a Skrull, it almost confirmed my suspicions even more. Because we know that Gravik is a Skrull, but we also, we've never really seen an offspring of a human and a Skrull. So he could, be both. He could be mixed. I just thought that was my first thought, especially when we find out that she was a Skrull. I was like, oh, I'm like 90% sure. But I don't know. Maybe not. I would say like a strong 70%, maybe.
Interesting theory, Dill. I'm not going to say that I'm completely convinced, but I'm not going to say that I hate this theory either. I think that this could definitely, throw a real wrinkle into the rest of this
Yeah,
show, and I think that would
yeah.
make for some interesting episodes.
Well, also because we're dealing so much with Talos's daughter too. I feel like it almost makes sense. Like the kids are kind of the future kind of
Yeah.
thing. I don't know. That was my first thought. That's my Nick theory. So what is any last thoughts though on the second episode on the scroll reveal that it's his wife and it's a scroll?
Honestly, Dill, the people that I'm most interested in leaving this episode, like I said, I've been loving the Nick Fury stuff and getting more background and learning more about him. But I'm most interested between this relationship between Gaia and her father. I want to see, if their relationship makes it or breaks it in the end. You know what I mean? And obviously I want more and more of Olivia Colman every time I see her. So I think those are the three highlights that I like leaving this show.
There you go.
So
So we'll be back next week. Sorry, we got to wrap this up quick because I got to go to work. But
yeah,
we are going to be doing episode 3 next week. So excited to see where this goes. I am still optimistic. I can't judge a book by its cover. Can't judge a show on 2 episodes. Though I'm not
yeah,
incredibly hooked yet. Talking about it more, I'm a little bit more intrigued to see where the story goes. Like just hearing it all out again, I'm like, all right, maybe I am a little bit more engaged than I thought I was.
yeah.
So yeah, there's our review for episodes 1 and 2. Stick around for next week. You can find me Dylan_Randazzo at Twitter, Dylan Randazzo 417 at TikTok, and the Dill Pickle Movie Network. Kelsey, where can they find you?
You can find me at Kelsey A. Kilpatrick on Instagram or TikTok at Cause13.
Yay! All right, we'll see y'all next time.